Good morning. Welcome to the first session of HACR's annual symposium, Align Inclusion and Business Strategy through ERGs. We are thrilled to have you with us here today for this dynamic panel. Today's morning panel will bring together leaders from employee resource groups from three corporations, AT&T, General Electric, and PepsiCo. Not only do we have a great panel for you today, we also have a wonderful moderator for today's session, HACR's own Vice President of Strategic Engagement and Initiatives, Yai Vargas. Yai, welcome.
Thank you, Sylvia. I appreciate you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our symposium and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Again, my name is Yai Vargas, and I have the honor of moderating our first session today. Our session is titled Align Inclusion and Business Strategy through Employee Resource Groups, also known as ERGs. As a lot of you know, employee resource groups are one of the most effective ways to nurture an inclusive work environment. Today, we're going to hear from ERG leaders on their roles and the groups that their ERGs play in providing employee support, reducing turnover, and achieving organizational goals. You'll also learn how companies can use these groups to lead their philanthropic efforts. First, I'd love to introduce to you one of our first panelists, Derek Gutierrez. Derek is currently the Senior Director and GM for Transformation in the West Division at PepsiCo Beverages in North America. Derek, thank you so much for taking the time this very early morning for you. Welcome, and please share with us a little bit more about your role at PepsiCo, as well as the role that you hold in the ERG.
Absolutely. Jai, good morning. Good morning to everyone, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. It's an honor to be here, and it's been a pleasure just through the process, getting to know my fellow panelists. I've been at PepsiCo for 10 years, as you mentioned, part of Pepsi Beverage North America. Sit here in Southern California as part of the West Division, leading our transformation journey, really equipping our team with new tools and taking our organization to the next level from a digitalization perspective. I'm a former GM for the Los Angeles market and the Orange County market. Currently, I'm the national co-chair for Adelante. And throughout my 10 years at PepsiCo, I've been a member of Adelante. I've been an active participant across many different initiatives. I've been an executive sponsor. And then about a year ago, I was tapped to join the organization as the national co-chair, alongside so many other great leaders and so many great members throughout PepsiCo. So I'm honored to be here and excited about the panel.
Thank you, Derek. And for it being so early, we so appreciate you.
Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it.
Thank you. And now I'd love to welcome Eric Mitchell. Eric is Assistant Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at AT&T, where he leads efforts to grow a diverse workforce, foster an inclusive workplace, and position diversity and inclusion as a strategic business advantage at AT&T. Eric, thank you so much for being here by way of Dallas. Can you share with us a little bit more about your specific role at AT&T, as well as the role that you hold in your ERG there?
Thank you very much, Jai. So the angle for me is a little bit different in that I am working in diversity, equity, and inclusion at the corporate level, and working across the corporation with all employees and executives to advance our approach for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I am, in effect, honorary member of every single one of the employee groups, including Hacemos, our group for the Hispanic Latino community. But also we have the direct relationship with my organization with helping to coordinate and guide the work of the ERGs and our other groups within.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eric, so much, and thank you for being here. So rounding out today's panel is Daniel Caratini. Daniel is an executive chief consulting engineer at GE Aviation. He has over 17 years of professional experience between the aviation, auto and power generation industries, and is a veteran of the U.S. Army. He's also an alum of our Young Hispanic Corporate Achievers program. Some of you know that program, and please make sure that you send in some of the individuals that are part of your organization. That program is going to be kicking off soon. Thank you so much for being here, Daniel. Share with us a little bit about your role there at GE, as well as your role with the ERG.
Certainly. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, HACR and Yai, for having me here. My name is Daniel Caratini. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I've been in the United States since 2003. I currently live in Cincinnati, although I've moved around different places in the US. In my current role, I'm an executive chief consulting engineer working on improving our design rigor for our products around cost and producibility. And as of this year, I was asked to take, it was quite frankly an honor for me to take on the leadership role, the co-leadership role for the Hispanic Forum Employee Resource Group across the company. And so I've been very focused on thinking about how do we improve inclusion and diversity within our ERG with our operating team. And so Yai mentioned that I am, my relationship with HACR started as a young Hispanic corporate achiever. So big shout out and big hug to my family in the YACA class of 2016. And I'm happy to be here, thrilled about it, and looking forward to the conversation.
Gracias, Daniel. I appreciate you. So let's get our conversation started. And I want to begin with Derek. Derek, the pandemic gave us so many challenges when it came to programming, specifically our ERGs. Can you share with us one major challenge that your ERG was faced with at the start of the pandemic and how they uniquely positioned themselves to create a solution to solve that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. From a connection point, so at Adelante, our Hispanic ERG within PepsiCo, we are very closely connected, and we have multiple chapters throughout over 400 locations throughout North America. So a lot of times within these locations, we are connecting together in one location personally and having that personal touch. With the pandemic, we were no longer able to come into these locations and the social distancing. So that was a real challenge for us. Obviously, technology helped us evolve. But I look back at the last 16 months, and I think beyond just the pandemic, for how dynamic this world is that we're living in, has delivered us so many more challenges. Specific to our Adelante ERG, you look at the pandemic and how that affected our cohort in the Hispanic and Latino communities. But you also look at the civil unrest, the political unrest. There were so many things going on that created a lot of stress, a lot of worried individuals. And at Adelante, I was really proud at how PepsiCo embraced the ERG and allowed us to engage with our leaders to understand how best to engage across the organization, not only just with Latinos and Hispanics, but throughout the communities that were really affected by the pandemic and the other macro factors across the communities. We really took a step forward to have courageous conversations and equipped many of our leaders with the ability to engage, to create a safe place at PepsiCo, to share how people are feeling, their stories, really create a higher level or a deeper level of empathy and vulnerability from our leaders as well. These were unprecedented times. And I think the inflection point, again, over the last 16 months is really going to build us a foundation to have a more open environment, to communicate, to share. I know we're going to talk about allyship as we move through the panel, but again, to connect at a deeper level with individuals to really understand how they're feeling. So again, at PepsiCo and Adelante, having courageous conversations, again, through a virtual environment, developing a deeper level of empathy, and also accelerating investments across these communities. Throughout, I think about a year ago, October of 2020, PepsiCo stepped forward with our Hispanic REJ initiative, which was over a $447 million investment over 5 years to these communities. So again, not only did it help to provide the tools to connect individually, but it also accelerated the company's stance to invest in these communities and take a stand for what we believe is the right thing.
That's beautiful. And if you can share with us a little bit more, what does REJ stand for those that are listening and saying, I need to take notes, I need to follow in Derek's footsteps and strategize?
Yeah, it's a racial equality journey. It's strategic investments against key communities. So people, community, and business are the three pillars. Again, we have that both with the Black cohorts, the Black REJ. Again, a 5-year investment over $400 million, and a Hispanic REJ. So really strategic investments that really give back and uplift these communities and these cohorts. And that's just one thing that we're doing across the Black and Hispanic, and that goes beyond other cohorts as well, to ensure that we have a wide lens on impacted communities and a way to engage at a deeper level.
Thank you. And how many chapters and members did you mention there are across the US or the globe?
Well, we have 400 locations. Now, there's not a chapter in every location, but again, over the past year, since I've taken a co-chair, we've really tried to bring together, especially in North America, both the Frito-Lay and Pepsi beverages, to have one voice and to again, strengthen the connection amongst our associates, our members, and our chapters, to ensure that we have the loudest voice and the loudest impact. Again, we've done a lot of things just to bring our chapters together and bring our sectors together to have one voice across Adelante.
I love that. One voice. Thank you, Derek. And now over to you, Daniel. We speak a lot about allyship. How has your ERG taken allyship and that specific programming to the next level?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I'll start at the company level and then I'll bring it to the ERG level. But as a company, allyship has been a big thematic push for us. If you think about how it starts, in my mind, it starts with having advocacy at the right level of the organization, where, in 2020, for example, at GE, we created the role of Chief Diversity Officers. That's a role that we didn't have before. The CDOs, the Chief Diversity Officers, we have one who reports to the CEO of GE, and then for every business, we have CDOs who report to the CEOs of their own divisions. And so they're really accountable to integrating inclusion and diversity into our operational rigor across the company. And so if you think about inclusion, allyship is a big part of it. And so they play a big role in enabling allyship across the organization. Now, when you start thinking about ERGs, GE has a long history of ERGs. It goes back to 30 years of supporting ERGs as a company. And so, in fact, this year, the Hispanic Forum Employee Resource Group, it's celebrating its 25th anniversary, which is fantastic. And so, as a company, we have 8 ERGs. And when you think about allyship, the ERGs play a big role by staying connected and supporting each other. And so, from a leadership perspective, we connect on a quarterly basis as a group of leaders within the ERG groups, and we bring in some of the challenges that our members are struggling with, and then we also work together on how do we develop solutions to address those challenges. And so, for example, how to develop inclusion through allyship is a key topic that we're actively thinking about, and then us as ERG leaders, we play a big role in promoting and becoming allies to all the other employee resource groups. If I go further deep into a specific example of an ERG, so if I think about the Hispanic Forum, which is the ERG that I have the opportunity to co-lead, this year we revamped our leadership team for the Hispanic Forum Employee Resource Group. We've really wanted to lead by example. So our name itself, Hispanic, we're thinking about how do we have a more inclusive name. We brought into our leadership team to lead by example, Hispanics, Latinos, and allies into the operating team. So now we can understand their voice as part of how we operate and better represent the membership that we want to to have. And so that's an example at the ERG level. We also are going to have this month a 3-day Hispanic Forum Summit. We obviously include our members in there, but we're in the spirit of allyship, we're opening it up for all the other employee resource group and any other employee of the company to participate. So if I were to summarize, I would say having advocacy at the right level of the organization is important. Connecting your ERGs together so that they drive allyship together, and then leading by example operationally. I think those are 3 things that I would recommend.
Thank you, Daniel. That is impressive. 25 years as a Hispanic ERG is incredibly impressive. I'm sure that you have collected the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Some challenges, some opportunities, and some incredible best practices, which is exactly what we're sharing today. Thank you for sharing that. And now I want to hand it over to Eric. Eric at AT&T, I want to ask you, inclusion has taken on an incredibly new life over the last 18 months. Can you share with us how your ERGs specifically have created programs or conversations about Latinx identities? And exactly like Daniel mentioned, so many of us are challenged with including Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx, right? And including and evolving that framework and that mindset. So tell us a little bit more about how AT&T approaches this.
Sure. I'll focus on the work that Hacemos has been doing in partnership with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I would say one of the things that's really been important in the conversation, that we've been having across the business, and particularly from Hacemos, is the fact that the Hispanic Latino community is not. So you hear that a lot with others. We have a lot of diversity within our own segment, within our own community. And the organization has definitely been emphasizing this. And we've seen it a lot really come together with our Hispanic Heritage Month celebration this year, where we are emphasizing the diversity within the Hispanic Latino community. Certainly with George Floyd, it brought up the fact that there's intersectionality, Black community. They've also addressed intersectionality with the LGBT plus community. During the pandemic, when there was a focus on mental health and wellness, they looked at the intersectionality with people with disabilities. So the real focus has been on showing that being Hispanic, being Latino is not just one thing. It's many things, and all of them are beautiful. All of them contribute to the greatness that we have here at AT&T, and really amplifying that through that messaging and through their collaboration with other groups.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now I'd love to ask Derek to share with us a little bit more. The ERGs are an instrumental opportunity in creating a culture of belonging and inclusion. And we know it all begins and starts with recruiting diverse talent. Now share with us, how has your ERG specifically worked on a diverse recruiting strategy for the company overall? And this is very important for those of you who are looking to start your ERGs or to evolve them and connect them to the business's bottom line. Derek is going to share a best practice on something that they've created to be able to help recruit more diverse talent. Derek.
I'll take twofold. One, we've partnered very closely with talent acquisition and the PepsiCo Foundation to have a loud voice in key scholarship investments across these communities. So we have the Uplift Scholarship, which is over $30 million over 5 years. And that really is focused on 2-year colleges and trade certification. We have a Smiles Scholarship focused on 25 individuals that we can really invest in and bring along. And with each of these investments, we have them partnered with a PepsiCo employee. And I think that's really where I want to focus on, because our greatest strength is our people. And again, allowing Adelante to have a voice in our talent acquisition and into our scholarship and our foundation allows us to also affect that initiative at a grassroots level. Adelante is heavily involved across the country in our operating divisions and how we go to job fairs. We show up, we look like the community, we engage with those individuals so they know what kind of environment they're coming into at PepsiCo. We've also, with Unidos US, we're getting ready to launch a Latinos in Sales training program. So that's almost an apprenticeship to bring individuals across these communities into our organization and train them on the job, to give them the skills that better equip them to be marketable across the workplace. So again, I think our people and our ability to bring people in really allow us the ability to recruit, but almost more importantly is how are we developing those internally here at PepsiCo. So we also have a mentorship program that's scalable. So we have a national mentorship circle that is run and led by Adelante through our membership that engages at a variety of different levels, but it's also scalable across our chapters. So we have a model that can be rolled out beyond just the national program that really allows it to proliferate throughout our divisions in the country.
That's extremely impressive. And we actually received the same question from someone who's watching virtually, Gina Cano. I hope that helped in your best practices search. And now I want to ask a question of Daniel at GE. If there are individuals watching who have yet to start their programming this year for their ERG, and they're trying to figure out, over the next 4 months that are remaining in the year, Daniel, can you share with us what one big idea these ERG program managers can plan or support or launch before the year ends? What's like one low-hanging fruit that you can say, if you do anything at all this year, go in this direction?
If it's okay, I'll go a little bit in a different direction with the question. I'll share a couple of perspectives. One, if you're an ERG just starting, if I were to start an ERG on Hispanic, like the Hispanic Forum, what would I do? And then I'll share a perspective on, a quick win if you have an established ERG. And so for me, I think it starts with having the right leadership structure and the right leadership at the ERG level that can commit to an operating plan and an operating rhythm to be accountable to the execution of that plan. Once you have that established, if you're a new ERG, I think it's all about talking to your members, talking to the people that you strive become part of your ERG, and understanding and listening to what's on their mind. What you're going to get, in my experience, is that you're going to start getting all of the sudden ideas for programming, for activities that you could go launch as an ERG. But you're also going to start receiving challenges of what your members are struggling with. And so as an engineer, I quickly want to go into how do I prioritize that? And I go and I create some sort of effort versus impact matrix. And so if you're looking for low-hanging fruit to execute this year, a good place to start would be low effort, high impact, and pick one. I would say pick one and execute it well. So that's for a brand new ERG. At least that's how I would recommend you kind of get started. It's so important that you listen to your members, and we can't forget about that. If you have an established ERG where you have the structure already going and you're looking to do something, I think internally we find that people really like development type of discussions, career development type of discussions. And so one of the things that, and people also like big speakers, like a big leader internal to the company or an external speaker. And so if you could do one event around career development with a recognized leader, I think that could give you a quick win for your company. And one of the things we did with COVID and having to operate more virtually, we wanted to do something more fun, more social. And so this year we incorporated 2 virtual concerts, 1-hour concerts. The difference here was that people had the opportunity in between songs, so to ask questions about what's the difference between, I'm gonna make this up, salsa and merengue from a genre perspective, right? And so the band was interacting through our virtual capabilities, interacting with our audience. They were asking questions, but they were also enjoying the concert, the music, and the performances that were taking place. And it was such a wonderful way to build community. And so I think those are some of ideas. Again, one for a brand new ERG, and if you have something more established, a couple of things that you could go do to make an impact this year.
Thank you, Daniel. So you all heard that correctly. Having constant communication and listening to your members. And so making sure that you do employee surveys specifically for the ERG members, I would say almost every 3 to 6 months. And Daniel was also sharing, if you're looking for a quick win, make sure that you focus on a professional development program so that the employee feels invested in. And Daniel, I have to ask you, what bands were featured during the concert? Tell me more about this concert.
So there were names that you would recognize, but one was about tango, believe it or not. So we had our friends in Argentina help us with that. And then the other one was about music from Brazil, which again, it's for me growing up in Puerto Rico is very different. So.
Wow, maybe Bossa Nova. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Some great ideas. And now, Eric, I would love to ask you the next question. And all of you represent global brands. But Eric, what is one way you've uniquely been able to bridge the divide with ERG members across the globe? We know that there have been so many different challenges geographically, technology-wise, and just engagement. You know, we heard about the Zoom fatigue very early on in the pandemic. Share with us a little bit about how you approach this challenge.
Well, I think we kind of solved the problem using the problem itself. So I would definitely like to reinforce what Danielle said in regards to listening to your membership. And I would say that that was one of the things that the groups definitely stepped up with. Was everyone's in a different situation. We're all dealing with it individually. You know, how do we deal with it together? You know, I think being responsive in that way had a lot to do with the effectiveness of ASEMOS and our other ERGs. And because of coming together to have those discussions, you know, created that sense of connection, even when people weren't able to be physically together anymore, as Derek had described. And so we continue to build on, you know, how do we stay connected in a virtual way, even if we can't be connected, you know, the way that we had been used to and we're very comfortable with. And so the big deal for us was the fact that we normally have an employee group conference. We've done it for about 13 years. It's the largest and most anticipated employee event. It was always in the past a physical event. So you would come to a center, you would come to Dallas, there would be a hotel, we'd have a huge conference there. We were only able to accommodate about 2,000 people, but being at that conference was a big deal. Things happened at that conference. You made connections with folks who may be in your own organization, but were in different chapters in different parts of the United States. You could meet folks from the international employee networks. You could meet folks from other employee networks. So the organizations and their members made a lot of very important connections that they would then, you know, leverage throughout the rest of the year when they were back at home, working in their chapters, working locally. And so when we were hit with the pandemic and it was like, well, we're not going to be able to convene the conference, we decided that it wasn't just a matter of, okay, well, we'll just cancel it this year and we'll just wait this out. We actually pivoted it to be a virtual conference. And it was the first time we'd ever done that on this scale. And it still created the connection. Wasn't exactly the same in terms of being in the same room, feeling that energy when a speaker is particularly inspiring, or making that connection on the dance floor at an after hours event. But what we did do was we were able to scale it up. So I mentioned that we were only able to usually accommodate about 2,000 people. Going 100% virtual, we were able to accommodate 7,500 people, and they were from all around the globe. So people who had never been to the conference before were able to actually attend now. And it was such a success that, you know, despite the pandemic continuing, this is the model we're using this year. Our conference will be on October 15th. Again, it's going to be 100% virtual, and we're really looking forward to upping our game from what we were able to deliver to employees last year.
That is impressive. Thank you, Eric. 2,000 employees. And so you mentioned this conference, it was solely positioned to benefit the ERG champions and members.
Yes. So what we would do is it really had three areas of focus. So one of them was the fact, and the other panelists have addressed, is the ERGs play a very important role in the business. However they're structured within your company, they make a great contribution to the sense of belonging, to the culture of the company, to your whatever we do at a business level on advancing diversity and inclusion. They're the ones that really grasp it and then really amplify it, in every area of the business. And so what we do is the conference is in one way a thank you and a recognition. So we bring the members together. We have awards that we give out for the significant achievements throughout the year in various categories where the ERGs have activity and have impact. We also, because one of the aspects of their charter is to support business objectives, it's an opportunity to educate them on our business objectives, the different lines of business, what their focus and priorities are, so they can see how to align themselves and their activities with that. And then we also, of course, want to give them an opportunity to simply learn more about various aspects of diversity and inclusion, various aspects of the activities that they've put that we can elevate, for the rest of the business to see. So it really is a celebration and an appreciation for our employee resource groups.
Thank you for sharing that. And we know that that's something so important, is to make sure that those individuals who are stepping forth and going above and beyond their full-time job, recognizing their efforts. Now, I have a question from the audience, and I'd love to open it up to any one of you who would like to address this. And all of your ERGs have been in motion and in play for many, many, many years, some 25 years and 30. But I have this question from the audience, right? What tips can you give to make employees more comfortable with joining and participating in a brand new ERG? As you know, we're all still, for the very most part, virtual. What tips can you give an employee to benefit them joining these programs virtually?
Well, I'll jump in on that because, as you said, our oldest ERG is over 50 years old. And so we have many, ASEMOS is, I believe, over 40 years old. So, our employee organizations have been at this for some time, but we are regularly introducing new ones. In fact, we just introduced one this year that addresses, it's called Faith at Work. So it's addressing religion as an aspect of diversity within our workforce and with our employees. And that's probably a very good example to your question, because they were introduced, during this pandemic environment. I think that the key thing is you have to make sure that the organization's purpose is very clearly defined. So, and this is where my organization gets involved in helping to introduce these new groups to the business and promoting them in partnership with corporate communications. But you make it really clear, here's the name, here's the logo, but here's the mission of the group. Here's what we're really all about. And therefore people can see where there's a connection for them. So I mentioned before that a lot of our groups were addressing intersectionality. And so, you would get to see how different segments, different groups of people, different communities would be encompassed and touched by the ERG. And then, of course, we have a practice where all of our ERGs have to be open membership to everyone. So it's not just members of a community, it's their allies. We advise employees to go and join the ERGs to learn more about a community that they may not be familiar with as they try to increase their racial literacy or increase their understanding about a group of people, and broaden their deep diversity and inclusion perspective. So I think the point where you make it really clear that we're here for a particular purpose, we address a particular angle or aspect of diversity, it helps people see where they can really connect.
That is impressive. I've received a lot of questions about faith-based ERGs, and that is one that's very challenging and very touchy to be able to launch. So kudos to AT&T. My next question is for Daniel, and it's for this particular one right over here. So I want you to share with us, when it comes to programming, right? How do you partner with other employees in Latin America to connect with the goals for Hispanic ERGs in the US? You might have some experience with this.
Yeah, so I mentioned that we are, again, the history of our organization, we're the Hispanic Forum, and we recognize that we have Hispanics all across the globe, quite frankly. We also have Latinos who want to participate but don't feel like they belong. And so one of the things we're doing, we historically have been very U.S. centric in terms of our hub presence. So we have a national operating team that's supported by a number of regional hubs. And for the most part, historically, those hubs have been in the United States. This year, with the push for us to expand, which in my mind is the right thing to do, be more inclusive of our employees all over the world. We are launching on September 30th our Latin America hub. This would be, in my mind, the blueprint in terms of what are the requirements to expand outside of the US? How do we think about the structure? This blueprint, and it includes all of Latin America. It will serve as our blueprint to start expanding into other areas, other regions of the world. And so September 30th is a big day for us. We have, one of the enablers was a strong leadership team who said, we want to be part of the Hispanic Forum. We want to be more connected to the goals of the organization. And we think we can support the overall mission of lifting up the Hispanic and Latino community. And so with that engagement, it figuring out the details of how do we celebrate and launch this effort, it became a natural thing to go do. And so we're very excited about it. We're also going to think about again, I mentioned this earlier, think about our name and one thing at a time, but September 30th, looking forward to it.
Gracias, Daniel. And this question, I want to open it up to anyone who's on the panel, and we've received it a number of times in the chat box. And so let me elaborate. There are so many individuals who are based out of the home office, the corporate building, the headquarters, but they also include ERG members in production plants and out on the front lines. And so the question for whoever would like to take this is, what tips can you give to connect ERG members with manufacturing or plant-related roles versus corporate roles? We all know that there is a very big divide between those typical 9-to-5 roles and those that are in front lines. So for any one of you that would love to share some tips on how to include those individuals who are not sitting in front of a computer every single day like we are from 9 to 5.
Yeah, Jai, I'll take a shot at this one. I think it's really important to be sensitive to the schedules and to understand the various levels of individuals that are participating across the organization. At Adelante, we have early morning breakfasts. We also build out programming that can allow for a frictionless consumption. The team has done an outstanding job with a podcast called Adelante Radio. So we have that same content available to anyone that they can really go consume that on their timelines. So again, if we do have an event, and again, technology's enabled this in a sense, if we do have an event during that 9 to 5 that's more kind of focused and accessible to the professional, we try to always record that, send that out, and have really a hub that individuals can go and find that information, or we send that out directly. But I think that's really an important piece of how we engage across different levels of members across our ERGs, and having specific programming and content that can connect across all levels, especially, as I mentioned, the mentorship programming and internal development professionally to ensure that we're thinking across all of our members and participants.
Thank you, Derek. And my last and final question to all of you, and I'll start with Eric, is do you measure and have targets for employee participation in ERGs? And if so, what value do you see from this measurement? I'll go to Eric and then Daniel and then Derek.
So yes, we do. So, I mean, quite honestly, I will tell you, we do track the membership in each of the employee groups and each of the ERGs. We do look at how that membership fluctuates year over year. And generally that's in response to changes in the business and, upsizing the workforce, downsizing the workforce. I would not say that we measure an ERG's effectiveness solely on the number of members that they have. We really look at the business impact because, a group like Hacemos has over 9,000 members. It's an organization that's been around a while. They have a history, they have a foundation to build on. Our newer ERGs, they may just have a couple of hundred members, at least starting out. And so we can't just assess their value based on the membership. What we assess it on is, what have they been able to do? What have they've been able to bring to this conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion? What impact have they had in the community? What impact have they had in support of company business objectives? And, size isn't always a big determinant of that. It's really the effectiveness of their approach to the issue. And so we don't set targets for them, but we are mindful with them of, is membership at a healthy level, relatively speaking? And if it's not, let's look into what's going on because maybe there's something we need to address.
Thank you. And how about you, Daniel? Do you have measurement metrics for your ERG participation?
We also looked at the participation at the local hub level just to get a sense of the engagement of our members in the different local activities. But I think, I agree that the most important thing is what is the value that the activities and the impact that they're having on our employees. And so I think focusing on, the outcomes of a development, for example, if we launch a development program to coach and mentor some of our members, what is the impact that that's having in their performance? That would be a good indicator of the value that the program brought in. So are your skills tangibly better because you participated in that development program? But quite frankly, the participation is not a key metric. That it's good to see it and make sure that our membership is engaged, but it's not the ultimate. It's more about the impact to our members and what they're communicating to us as part of our feedback.
Thank you, Daniel. And Derek, in the last few seconds, would you like to share on this question as well?
Yeah, I think, again, the theme there, impact, effectiveness, and really feedback. I think that feedback loop is of utmost importance. We do have specific KPIs for some key initiatives. We build out an annual operating plan of really, hey, what are we going to go do over the next 12 months? How are we going to build on what we've done over the last year and beyond? Again, creating a strategic framework around, hey, what's the direction that we can share out with the various chapters that we're all connected, engaged against the same initiatives and focus, where there's really kind of national direction, some of the local decision making. So participation, we absolutely keep an eye on, but really about the feedback and impact to our employees and what they're feeling, how they're engaging, and what feedback they're having directly to us.
Thank you to all of our incredible panelists, Derek, Eric, and Daniel, for taking the time and the energy to share these incredible examples of how we can take a strategic approach to ERGs and BRGs. Now I'd love to pass it on to Sylvia, who's going to close out our program and get us to our next session here at the symposium. Sylvia, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Derek, and Danielle for your insights and the great discussion. I have to add that I also love the virtual concert idea, the feeling that will be replicated many times over after this session, for this conversation. Our next session, From the Top CDO Strategies for DE&I, will be starting soon in the auditorium. I look forward to seeing all of you there. Thank you for joining us this morning.